flashed to you online. My name is Jessie. I'm going to be your artist today. I'll be guiding you through this painting here called Monkey Business. I'll be telling you all of the tips and tricks, all the mixing of the colors, the technique, shapes, all that stuff. You guys can make your very own version in the safety of your own home. So we got a couple of supplies here that I want to go over. You should have this water cup here that's great for putting your brushes in when they're not using them. It's also great for washing off your brushes in between colors. And then you should have the brushes in this handy dandy little roll. You should have 4 of them. Got your large flat brush, got your medium flat brush, your medium round brush, and your tiny detail brush. So I'll be telling you which of those we're going to be using throughout our painting here. And with them you've got this handy dandy little rag that's great for drying off your brushes once you have washed them. So first things first, guys, I'm going to put these right here in my water cup. It's a nice home base for them so that they don't dry out whenever you're not using them. And lastly, you should have your palette and your paint, hopefully, as well. And a canvas, you know, that always helps. That being said, guys, since this is a video, if at any time you want to pause it for your paint to dry or if you just need to go do something, absolutely feel free to do so. And then whenever you're ready to jump back in, you can just unpause it. So our first step here, we're going to be working kind of from the background to the foreground. So we're going to start with the sky and the water. So I'm going to grab my largest flat brush here, and we're going to be using, or it's going to be going from kind of like a darker tealy blue to a lighter blue, and then again back down to a darker blue for the water. So for the sky, I'm going to grab kind of equal parts blue and white to start with. Mixing them right on my palette here. And I'm also going to grab just a teensy tiny bit of yellow just to get a teal color. Now you want to be careful when adding yellow because if you add too much it's going to turn green. So I'm just adding a little bit at a time till I get the desired color. Okay, so there's my teal up there. And what you're just going to do is spread this across the top of your canvas. It doesn't have to be perfectly vertical lines. I'm just kind of making it look like a sky. And then as you're going, you want to start to add some pure white in there to blend it down. It's supposed to get lighter as it gets down to about halfway down the canvas. So just go like that so I know where to stop. And then I'm just going to blend this all out. Get some kind of wispy cloud textures in there. Just gonna keep going until I get all the way down to the halfway point on my canvas. And by the time you get there, it's probably gonna be almost pure white, maybe with a little bit of blue streaks in there. And if there's any part of this painting, guys, I should mention that you want to change, feel free to absolutely go for it. This is your painting, you guys. I want you to be happy with it. So if you want to change any of the colors, any of the shapes, or anything at all, feel free to go for it. I'm just gonna get some more color in here. Alright, I think that's good for my sky. So now that I've got the top half, we're going to go back down and do the water here. So we don't have to worry about the mountain or any of this purple in the water right now. We're just going to worry about the blue. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to add a little bit more blue to that teal color that I made so that it's less yellow. More blue. And then we're just going to go ahead and make our horizon line to start. Trying to make it kind of straight, but if it's not perfectly straight, that's okay. Our mountain's going to cover that up anyway. Yeah, it's not straight, but that's okay. And so I'm just going to bring this color down. Add a little bit of white there in the center, so it's a bit brighter. And then I'm going to start to add a bit more blue to my teal as I go down. So it's going to end up being a little bit darker once you get down to the bottom of your canvas. Now I'm just picking up pure blue So then by the time you get to the bottom of your canvas, it's just going to be pure blue. And I like to do all this background stuff pretty quickly so that it stays nice and wet while you blend. Wet paint is always easier to blend than dry paint. Yeah, so that is our sky and our water. We've already got that down, so that's cool. At this point we do want our paint to dry before we go on to our next step, so it's a good time to take a short little 5-10 minute break so you guys can pause the video, wait for this to dry, and then whenever you're ready you can unpause the video and get back into it. Alrighty guys, once this is all dry, we're going to start to work on the mountain here. So you can see it is mostly like a dark purple with some white on top for the snow cap, and it's also a little bit kind of to the left of your canvas so you can kind of see it behind this here little monkey. So I'm going to switch to my medium round brush here, and we're going to mix a dark purple. So that's going to be equal parts red and blue. So I'm just going to mix those together right on my palette. There we go. So I've got my dark purple there in the center of my palette. And we're just going to make the shape of our mountain. So it kind of covers the whole horizon line. It's kind of narrower on this side, it goes up and then comes back down. So to start, I'm just going to kind of draw this purple across our horizon line. Just like that. And then I'll make the kind of outline for it. So it's going to go up and back down. Kind of fix it as you're going to make it look more bumpy if you want. Make it a little bit bigger if you want. Then you can go ahead and just fill that bad boy in. And now we're going to add some white to it to kind of make it look like it's capped with snow. So I'm just going to I'm not going to wash my brush out, but I'm just going to dab the excess paint off of it, and then I'm going to dip straight into white. And the reason we want to do this while this is still wet is so we can get a lot of different shades of purple while it mixes with the white. Looks super cool. So I'm just going to kind of drag my brush kind of wherever I want there to be snow, and I'm kind of making some really random motions so it looks like more natural. So just kind of creating some little areas of white. And you can see it starts to blend into that dark purple to create some really cool shades of purple. And then I'm going to dab it off again to get some more white so I can add some brighter whites at the top. And then you can just keep messing with it until you like how it looks. There, I like that. And then this time I am going to wash off my brush. I'm not going to dry it off though, because we want to make, next we're going to make the reflection of the mountain in the water, so we want it to kind of look a little transparent. So I've got my wet brush here, and I'm going to dip into that purple again. And you're just going to drag this across your water in some horizontal strokes to make it look like the mountain is reflected in the water. So we're going to kind of mimic this shape, so it'll be a little bit taller on this side, and then it'll kind of taper off on the other side, just like on top. Then you can kind of make it as dark or as light as you want. I'm just picky, so I'm gonna keep working on this. I like it. There we go. Alright. So we're going to take another short little break to let this all dry before we start on the branches. So go ahead, give this video a pause, and then when you're ready and it's all dry, we can go, get back into it. Alrighty guys. guys, once the mountain is all, you know, dry and stuff, we're just going to go ahead and start the branches and then sketching out our monkey here. So I'm going to grab my medium round brush again, wash it off. And you're going to want some pure black paint for this. So I'm going to dip my brush into some pure black paint. And the brushes are super simple. They're just a series of weird little lines that kind of branch off. And you want to make sure none of them are kind of overlapping our mountain here. So they're a bit kind of up in this area. And you want to make sure that you have one that's hanging low enough for our monkey to kind of hang off of. So I'm going to start with this one here. And it just kind of comes in from the side, does some wobble and stuff. Goes over there. And the only thing you need to kind of remember about tree branches is that they're always going to be thicker near where they come off the trunk and then thinner as they branch off. So as I'm branching some of these off, they're going to start to get thinner. Alright, so I've got my branches up there, and we're going to start on our monkey by just creating a series of shapes first. So the first one is just his body shape, and it's just kind of a weird egg shape. So we're going to start by kind of figuring out where I want his body to land. It's kind of just overlapping this side of the mountain here, so I'll just make an overlapping oval or egg shape right there. And then we'll figure out where we want his arm to come off of. So I'm going to grab some more black paint, and then it's just kind of like a little curve that's kind of hooked onto one of the branches. So I'm just going to kind of figure out, I'll have his hand coming from there. Just kind of bring it down like that. That's where he's going to be hanging off. And then his other arm is kind of reaching down towards the water here. So I'll just bring it down like that. You can kind of just make two little separate lines that branch off for his fingers. Like that. I'll make his body a little bit bigger. There we go. And yeah, whenever it comes to making shapes, guys, I always like to start small, and then you can kind of build your way up, and then, you know, change the shape as you go if you decide it needs to be bigger. It's always easier to add more, but it's not always easy to get rid of what you've already put down. So for his little legs, they're just kind of, you only really see this one in the silhouette, so I'm just going to add that little lump on the side. And then his little feet are just kind of little curved nubs that are coming off of the bottom of his body. Just put that one, and that one for his other leg. Right. And then lastly, his head. The only thing that's coming off is the top of his head and his ears. So the top of his head is just another little lump. And then two smaller lumps for his ears. Alright. So guys, that was kind of fast, so if you do need to go back, you know, pause the video and kind of rewind if you need to see any of the parts that I did here, feel free to do so, but I'm just going to fill this whole shape in with black once I have finished it, and then you can kind of really see how it all looks as a silhouette and fix anything you might need to. Oh, and then we also got his little tail down here, which is just a little curly Q on the bottom of his body. So I'll just bring that down and curve it around. Here we go. And there's his tail. So now is another good time to just quick take a pause, let this all dry before we go in and add some more details to our painting. So feel free to pause the video, take a 5-10 minute break, and then come back whenever you're ready. Alrighty guys, once your monkey is all dry, we're going to go in and add some color. first. So I'm going to grab my medium round brush again, dry her off. And then I'm going to take some brown and a little bit of white just to make it more opaque. We're going to start to add this around kind of the areas of the body that we want to define. So around the legs, the feet, arms, head, all that jazz. So I'm just going to start around the head first, and I'm kind of just giving a little bit of color and shape to his face. I'm using these dabbing motions because I don't want to completely cover all the black because it acts as a nice kind of outline and a shadow. So I'm just kind of filling in the spaces that I want to define. So that will be his head. And then we're going to go into his arm and fill that in a little bit. Go on the other arm as well. Again, I'm leaving the black on the edges so you can kind of see the outline and all that stuff. And I'm going to go in and do the feet and the legs. So you can see this one in the middle, I have to kind of define that shape because it's not on the silhouette. So I'll just kind of decide where I want that leg to be. And I'm kind of keeping my brush strokes loose so it looks kind of fluffy because he's covered in fur, obviously as a monkey. Then I'll kind of put some on the back of his body here as well. Give that a bit of a highlight. I'm going to leave it mostly black in the center there because it's kind of a shadowed area. And then I'll just define his other leg real quick. Give it some fluffy bits on the edge. And then I'll go to his feet and do the same. And lastly, his tail. Alright. Now we've got our first kind of layer of color on our monkey. I'm just going to go in and kind of solidify some of those colors with a second coat real quick. Alright, so you can see he's got some brown on him now. And then I'm going to wash that brush off. And I'm going to get a little bit of a lighter brown now. So I'm going to mix a little more white into my brown. And now we're going to kind of outline his face, which is kind of like a little mushroom shape where his eyes and then his mouth are going to be. So it's kind of at an angle here, you see. The little mushroom shape for his face. There we go. So I'll just start kind of halfway down his face, or his head, on top of that mushroom shape, and go down and add the bottom, and then fill that in. And I'll also add this in a couple areas on his body for a little bit of a highlight. Edges of his legs, and his feet, and I'm going to put some kind of on the far side of his cheek so you can kind of see that a little bit better, and then some on the top of his head as well. Alright, and there is most of your monkey. I'm going to go in just some details on his face. Maybe fix up his little mushroom shape a little bit. There. I've got my monkey there. A little hard to see. There we go. There he is. There's your monkey. And if you want, you can go ahead and add one last little highlight. I'm just going to make a really, really light brown. So mostly white, a little bit of brown. And I'm just going to put this on the edge of his face here. And then I'll kind of put it around where his nose is going to be too, so it looks like it's coming out a bit. Like that. You see he's got a little bit of definition on his nose. And then you can add this to wherever you want there to be a really bright highlight. And then the last thing we're going to do on the monkey is just add his eyes and his nose. So his eyes are just two upside down U shapes, kind of angled to kind of follow the line of his face. Like that. And then his nose are just two little dots kind of come together like this. They're little dashes, so like that. Alright. So that is the end of our monkey here. We're going to let this dry, take a little break. We did a lot of detail work here really quickly, so I'll let you guys take a break if you need to. Let this dry, and then we're going to go in and do some of these details here in the water as well. So give the video a pause, and then when you're ready to unpause, we can get back into it. Alrighty guys, once this is all dry, we're going to go down and work on the fish and the little ripples around the water here. Kind of hard to see from far away, so I'll show you. The right angle. There you go. You can see some of the fish and the little ripples in the water there. So we'll start with the fish. I'm going to take my detail brush, the smallest one you got, and to make those fish, it's kind of a mixture of blue with a little bit of red. So I'm going to find some space on my palette and mix those together. It's just a little bit of red to make it a bit darker than the rest of the water. So I've got my dark blue here, and these fish are just kind of swimming in a circle, so you kind of want to make them look a little bit curved around this area. So I'll start making a curved line like that, kind of looks like a C shape, and then I'll make one end smaller and one end a bit more fat at the end, so that's going to be his head. Fill that in to start. And then we'll just make his tail kind of a little tapered line to make it a bit easier. And then he's just got one little fin that's like a really angled triangle on the side, and then one on top that's the same. So there is your first fish. Now we'll just make a couple more that are kind of in different areas. You can have some that are kind of coming out in off the side like that, some that are coming in off this side, just to make it a little bit more interesting. You can make them different sizes and different shapes if you want. Okay, so I've got my fish down there. And then I'm going to switch to my medium round brush. Push it off. And you're going to take that same color mixture, but I'm going to add a little bit more blue to it so it's not exactly the same shade as the fish. We're going to start by adding just some like kind of broken circular lines that kind of emanate out radially, if that makes sense. So I'll start from the center, make a small little circle, and I'll just kind of make some lines around it. They don't have to be all connected, they can kind of just be broken little lines that they kind of circle around each other, just to look like they're ripples in the water. And then I'll go ahead and dip into some white. I'm not even washing my brush off because then I can get some cool kind of different shades of blue in there. I'm just going to add this a little bit more sparingly where the ripples are. Get some shine on that water. There we go. So now I've got my ripples in the water here. Now we're going to take just a short little break to let this dry before we go into just the last couple of details of the grass and the leaves up top. So give this video a pause, and then when you're ready to get back into it, just unpause it. Alrighty guys, once this is all dry, we're going to go ahead and add our leaves here. So I'm going to grab my medium flat brush. You can use this, or you can use the medium round brush. They just kind of create different shapes of leaves, so that's totally up to you. But first, I'm just going to grab some pure red, and we're just going to dab this in a couple clusters around the branches. Now you don't want to add too much, or else the sky and the mountain is going to be a little obscured, and we want to be able to see that. So I'm just going to add a couple little clusters of leaves here, kind of around where the branches are. I'm kind of pressing my brush down on the kind of end, so it creates a nice little tip once I pull it up. Now they don't all have to be like that, of course. You can make different types of leaves by, pressing down your brush at different angles. So there's options. I'm trying not to get any red on my monkey because that is kind of, branches are more behind him, so we want to make sure that it looks like that. Even had a couple falling around the edges, but that's optional. But yep, so let's start first step with the leaves. And then I'm just going to go in with my round brush so we can add another little highlight to the leaves in just a minute. Alrighty guys, so now that the red is on there, we can go ahead and add a little bit of orange on top. Kind of add a little bit of a glow and a highlight. So I've got my medium round brush here. And I'm going to use just pure orange, and I'm just going to dab this on top of the red leaves just to give them a little bit of a different color in there. Doesn't have to be too crazy, it's just kind of a subtle little highlight. And it doesn't have to cover all of the leaf because you still want to be able to see that red through it. Blue in my orange, don't want that. Alright, now that I've got a little bit of highlight on those leaves, we can go ahead and go down to the grass. So the grass is just kind of two different layers of color. First we've got kind of a nice medium green in there. So I'm going to take my medium round brush, wash it off. And I'm going to take some blue and some yellow, mix them together, and then add a little bit of white to brighten it up. And I want this green to be more kind of like a limey green, so I'm going to add more yellow than blue. Okay, once you've got the green that you like, I've got my green down there, you can just make a series of wavy lines on either side of our canvas here. I'll actually bring it up so you can see. Just a series of, there we go, wavy lines on either side of the canvas for little patches of grass. Kind of frames the scene really nicely. So just start on this side, make a couple of wavy lines. Some of them can be, you know, short, some can be long, they can be angled, whatever you want. There's one on that side. I'm going to do the other side. And I'm trying not to overlap the monkey too much. Now that we've got our first little shade of green down, I'm just going to add a little bit of white, a little bit more white to my green there to get a highlight color. And you can just add that on top of some of the strands you've already made to give it a bit of a highlight. Doesn't have to be too precise. I'm just adding it here and there to get some extra dimension. Alright. And that is the end of our painting here, guys. The very last unofficial step I have for you is to sign your painting. So I'm going to take my detail brush, and I find usually either black or white works best. For this one I'm going to use black since I've got a pretty colorful background. And I'm just going to put my initials down here. So everyone knows, you guys, that this is your painting that you've made in the comfort of your own home. It is unique to you, so you should put your name on it so everyone knows that you did it, and it's the best thing you painted all day. So, again, that is all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for joining us here in Splash Studio Online. We would love to see all the creations you guys have made, so if you want to tag us online, post them on Facebook or Instagram, you can tag us Splash Studio. And we would love to take a look at those. But other than that, guys, thank you for joining me again, and hope to see you again.